Oh, coming from Arizona. Wow. So this is a good friend of us. This is Dr. Tanya Michi Kumarakulasingam. She is, by the way, a great person, great wife of one of our best friends, Prabha Kumarakulasingam. She's got a huge resume here. Wow. She is a school psychologist in I don't know how do you pronounce, Tampa, Arizona, USA. She is got like a PhD in psychology from the University of Kansas. Graduate credits include research methods and statistics, 27, treatment and intervention, example, counseling and psychotherapy, 24, special education includes 10 hours of autism and 19, clinical child psychology, child psychopathology and pediatric psychology, 18, and assessment, intelligence, behavior, personality, and early childhood. She's got 13 papers on that. Education, classroom management, 12, child and adolescent development, and Texas A&M University, Central Texas, Military Child Education Coalition, MCEC. We have a solid person from Arizona talking to us. Welcome, Dr. Tanya Kumarakulasingam. All stage yours. I'm going to unmute you now. Tanya?
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I'm Tanya Kumarakulasingam, the wife of Prabhahara Kumarakulasingam. And I'm going to talk to you about the integration of persons with disabilities into schools, which also can be the integration of persons with disabilities also in universities or also in careers. So you do have a copy, Mr. Varagunan Mahadevan, if you could put that slide up, please. Thank you. So this, and he was reading from my LinkedIn profile. So if you want further information and details, please feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. I did want to give you a little bit of background. I have been married to my husband for 28 years, which means that I've been fully integrated into a local community, as well as several trips back to Sri Lanka and to other family and friends within the diaspora and other countries. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that I have been evaluated more than 1,250 people from birth through age 21. Wow. I do have, I've been working in education since 1990, and I have expertise particularly in educational disabilities, both mild to severe. But I also provide other services like suicide assessment. And I also wanted to let you know that my interactions within Sri Lanka also included presenting to the faculty of Royal College in Colombo in 1999, and that my mother-in-law and her mother and aunt attended Udaville Girls School. So I have also kind of a local connection there as well. If you go to slide 3, please. Thank you. So the importance of integration of students with disabilities in schools is extremely important, because students with, persons with disabilities, they have difficulties succeeding in school. They have difficulties accessing school. They have difficulties with employment. They have difficulties with life in general. And the importance of school, you will see that with the United Nations, they have the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. I do not think that, I'm not sure, but I didn't see in the United Nations that whether or not Sri Lanka had actually ratified this particular convention or accepted this convention. But within this convention, the United Nations supports the inclusion of, in all levels of education, from early childhood through post-secondary, of students with disabilities or persons with disabilities. The importance of it is to improve the functional skills. So you will see that this will make a huge impact on their ability to be able to succeed in life in general, in the family, in school, and in career, because they will have increased functional skills in academics, social skills, and communication. So academics would be able to make change, to be able to read a contract, to be able, social skills, the etiquette that other presenters have with soft skills, the communication, these would be functional communications to be able to interact with others in socially appropriate manners. This is slide 2. If you could be on slide 3, please. The other huge benefit to including students with disabilities into schools is that they get exposed to the same curriculum as other people get, which is necessary in order to go to university and to work professionally. If they are not in school, they won't be able to succeed. It prepares them for university entrance exams, it improves their chances of being employed, and it provides literacy and math skills instruction and socialization with peers who do not have disabilities. So if you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so educational disabilities. There are different types of disability categories and classifications within the school system. We're looking at disabilities that are providing barriers or obstacles to success as a student. So these are disabilities that make it difficult for a student to be able to access and stay in school and be successful. So these include things like medical issues such as having an anaphylaxis food allergy, a diabetes, asthma, epilepsy, speech language, which is voice fluency. You think of fluency with people who stutter, articulation, being able to make sounds correctly in their speech, vocabulary, expressive receptive language, and then social pragmatics has to do with the ability to use communication in socially appropriate manners and settings. Learning disabilities in reading, writing, and math, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Social emotional behavior would be those students who have anxiety, depression, they have aggressive types of behaviors, they have difficulties being able to stay in class or to be able to integrate and interact with others in appropriate manners. Autism, which can be from severe to very high functioning. There are some people with autism with doctoral degrees. Vision and hearing, intellectual disabilities, and orthopedic impairments. So if you go to the next slide, please. And so educational disabilities, to give an example, they are not adjustment types of situations, transient or temporary issues, such as divorce, death in the family, or even the pandemic. So with the pandemic, we are seeing higher rates of students that, and people in general that have maybe mental health issues, or they may have had trauma, or because they have a loss of job or income, family issues or homelessness, food insecurity. Those would be considered transient. Limited English proficiency with the language medium of instruction. So as we saw, another presenter had an English language club. Those students are not what we're talking about as students that have an educational disability. They are still learning English. Cultural differences, because the family's culture is different than the schools. And then minor correctable vision and hearing difficulties, such as I can hear very well in one ear, and I have a hearing device to hear my other ear, or I can hear, I just need some accommodations in the classroom, or I wear glasses. Lack of schooling, excessive absences, and poverty. So those would not be what we would consider educational disabilities. And then just to keep in mind that they range from mild, moderate, to severe. So all students, if you go on to the next slide, please. All students with mild disabilities, and I would advocate, should be and need to be included in the classroom and the school environment. So again, I will say again, all students with mild disabilities should be and need to be included in the classroom and school environment. And in my interactions with some people elsewhere in Sri Lanka, that's not always the case. Teachers and others provide the accommodation, so it's in order to make it fair for all students, we have to allows some students that have obstacles or barriers to be able to have a way to also get access to that instruction and that learning content. Teacher interventions may focus on academics, the social or behavior. So again, teachers are still providing the services, and there is no additional support necessarily, no special education is needed. So in this regard, that's why I'm saying you don't have to have special education services in order to integrate students with mild disabilities into schools, into universities, or into professional employment. But they do need access and a way to be able to do that in order to learn or to be able to work or to be able to be in that environment. The difference with moderate and severe is that they just need a little bit more support and special education services, and maybe with severe they might need to go to another school. They might need to have another type of program. And I also wanted to point out that in Sri Lanka there is a viewpoint of providing, everyone wants to get into university and do very well. And there are a segment of students that are gifted, and that's considered an exceptionality. They're gifted, they're very talented. There are students in this category who also have disabilities. They are going to do great things. They're going to have, they could go to university, could work professionally, but they also have a disability that also needs to be accommodated in advanced classes. So I wanted to point that out as well. And if we go to the following slide, please. This is just some examples of accommodations. There are many, many more accommodations, but the more that we know about a uniqueness of a particular student or particular person, and we know how we can level the playing field so that they can have access to that learning curriculum, we can know things like with a person with a hearing difficulty, so it would be hard of hearing, they're going to need preferential seating. So what that means is they need to be seated away from noises. So if there's an exit or an entrance to the classroom, they need to be seated away from that. If there's a machine going on or some other noises that are going on, they need to be seated away. If they have one good ear, that ear needs to be seated where the talking is going to be taking place. They need more visuals. We need to provide instructions and directions, but only after we've gained their attention. So if you will notice that persons with hearing difficulties, they may not realize there has been a transition in the lesson, or they may not have realized what has gone on because they haven't been alerted to the fact that the class has moved on. And you can see that there are other types of accommodations depending upon the particular uniqueness of the person. So for example, with speech language, they may need, speech language is a very broad category, but for those that have difficulties with oral speaking or with processing what others have said to them, this would be like for people who have language impairments, difficulties understanding language, and these would be people that may have difficulties with maybe stuttering. They need additional time for oral response. So instead of going on to other people in a discussion or in a small group, we need to give them time to be able to prepare, to be able to understand, and to be able to prepare what they're going to say to someone else. You might need to provide them notes, simplify the instructions, use visuals, and check for understanding. So it's just pointing out that with accommodations, these people can be integrated within a classroom setting. They can be integrated within a university classroom setting, and they can benefit from services from an education and gain the prerequisites that they need in order to be productive citizens of their society, of their community, to be able to gain employment. And these don't require money. So these are things that are free as long as people are identifying the ones that need it and are the ones who are providing the teaching or the environment understand that that person requires it and then are able to do that. So it's those are the types of examples. If we go on to the next slide. If you go on to the next slide, which would be regarding some of the barriers. So one of the major barriers is stigma and attitudes and biases towards persons with disabilities. This prevents people from getting identified from even when they know that they have the disability. It prevents people from accessing services. It prevents people from asking for help. It prevents people from getting access. It also, there have been instances, and my understanding in interacting, I know we're talking about North Sri Lanka, but I had the pleasure of interacting with a special educator in Gaul, and there are instances of people who've been tied to beds, who have been locked in their homes, and people denied access to getting into school. So we have to change the stigma and attitudes of biases and understand that they have dignity and ability to contribute to society and to benefit from education. And if you think about it in this way, look within your family, look within yourself, and you will realize in your circle there are many of your colleagues that are working professionally, that are doing very well, that may have a disability. Maybe they have ADHD, or maybe they have a learning disability in math, so they're in a career that doesn't utilize the math portion.
Sorry, Tanya,
yes.
we are running short of time a little bit. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. But you see the barriers there, and those are things that we can work on. Thank you, and that was my last slide. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Tanya, that was awesome because there is lots of awareness needed to be done. When we were little kids in school, we were all branded as Kulapadi. You know, the word Kulapadi means mischievous. These are all mischievous children. They can have ADHD, they can have anxiety attacks. So I think particularly my class, Renuka might remember, myself, everybody were branded as this whole class is Kulapadi class. So I think, but times have changed and there is a lot of awareness in Sri Lanka. I see that in a very, very positive way. So with that positive note, I want to thank Tanya Kumarakulasinghe